and welcome to Series 7, Episode 6 of In Suspense, a podcast and vodcast for fans and writers of crime fiction. I'm Lauren North, and my lovely co-host today is the wonderful Nikki Smith. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Lauren.
And Nikki is standing in for Leslie while she's buried herself in the writing cave. Leslie, I know you're going to listen to this, so I just want to say I hope the writing is going really well. And Nikki, thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, Lauren. It's lovely to be here. And like you, I'll say a virtual hello to Leslie and hope the words are flowing rapidly in her writing cave for her.
Yes, we do hope so, don't we? In our last episode, we chatted to Sharon Bolton on what's in a name, pen names and name changes, which was very popular. It was a fascinating episode with Sharon sharing some fantastic insights into her years in the industry. And it tipped us over the edge of having 10,000 listens on the podcast. And that's not included the people who just watch on YouTube. So thank you very much for continuing to tune in every week, and do leave us a review on Apple or any streaming site so that more people can find us. But on to today.
Yes, today our topic is writing duos, and we are going to be joined shortly by Collette Lyons and Paul Vlitos, who together form the fantastic thriller duo Ellery Lloyd, who are not just a duo, but they're also a married couple. And we have a lot of questions on how that works when it comes to writing.
Yes, we do. And in fact, I was on a dog walk with my daughter on Sunday talking about this, and she's like, I have a lot of questions. I was like, yeah, we both do. But before we dive in to talk about writing duos, Nikki, what have you been up to recently? Because I saw some rather exciting news on social media last week.
Indeed, yes. On Friday, I had the cover reveal for my next book, which is called The Beach Party, and it's coming out in July next year, and of course can be pre-ordered from all good bookshops and Amazon. And I'm absolutely delighted with the cover design. I know all authors say that, but I really, really am. And I think Viking, my publisher, have done a fantastic job. It really suggests the idea of drinking and dancing on a beach at night on a hot summer holiday with a dark sense of menace just round the corner. So yeah, absolutely thrilled with it, and it seemed to go down very well on social media, so that's lovely. And how about you, Lauren? What have you been up to? I think I saw a little something on social media too.
Yes, I did. I will say that in a minute. But first, I just want to say that I absolutely loved The Beach Party. I've read an earlier version. I can't wait to read a more recent version. But the cover is gorgeous. I see it on bookshelves and in supermarkets. And the intro they did this video, didn't they? This sort of little commercial with like this real 80s filter. I just thought it was brilliant. So,
oh, thank you.
You became an Amazon hot new releases as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, it was lovely.
Obviously very popular. My news, if for those who didn't see, is that I have signed a 2-book deal with Bookature, which I think I've probably been hinting at that is happening for the last about 4 months. We can finally talk about it. So yes, I have 2 books coming out in May and July next year, which is really exciting. I am still continuing with the LC North brand. I've had a few questions, and that is still happening with Transworld Penguin. I am doing both. So yes, I am splitting myself in 2, and it's going to be exciting and hard work. So yay for me.
Oh, it's going to be wonderful, Lauren. It is really exciting, and you are going to be one busy lady, but if anyone can handle it, you can. So yes, we're going to see Lauren looking quite stressed, I think, a few times in the next year.
More stressed. But we have got some other news today as well, and it's about the podcast. It's about next series 7? No, series 8.
8, Lauren.
Which will be from January. Leslie and I are super busy next year, but we don't want to disappoint our listeners, and we certainly don't want to stop doing this because we both love it so much, but it is a lot of work. And so we've decided that Nikki is going to come on and join us as a official co-host. So thank you very much, Nikki, for joining us. We're so pleased. We're so pleased.
Oh, I'm absolutely delighted to come and join you. I've loved this podcast from when you started doing it, you and Leslie, and so it's a real honour to be asked. And I'm so excited about starting in January. Got some really good ideas, which I know we're going to meet up and chat through next month. And
yes.
It's going to be great.
So you're excited now because we haven't given you loads of work yet, but once you see what it's like, you'll be like, oh no, what have I done? But I just think it's going to be brilliant. So the way it's going to work is that there's still going to be just two of us doing each interview. So it just means that one of us is getting a break every couple of weeks, and unless it's a Christmas special or something like that, Leslie was very much like, oh, we should all be on for that, which I thought was a brilliant idea. So I know I speak for Leslie as well when we say thank you so much for coming on board, and we are super excited that you are going to be a member of In Suspense. So thank you.
I can't wait to join. I'm really excited too. So yes, roll on January.
Yay. So what about writing duos then, Nikki? So we are talking about writing duos today. So what is your thoughts on them? Would you consider it?
I mean, I can imagine it's really nice to bounce ideas around someone that you trust. I can see like the kind of appeal of that. And I know kind of we talk plot issues and things like that sometimes, which can be really helpful when you've got something to iron out. But I think I'm way too much of a control freak, and I couldn't bear somebody else pulling my story off in a direction I kind of didn't expect it to go, or writing a character that I hadn't imagined in my head. So I'm going to be really interested to see how they do it. What about you? Could you ever write with someone else?
So I'm exactly the same as you. I'm a massive control freak. And actually, but I think we've spoken in the past, haven't we? Because our writing is quite similar. In fact, we've noticed that we've had a few quite similar sentences in our books, which is a bit freaky. And I think we've floated the idea, like just on like a very far out level. I don't think either of us were keen, but I have said that if I die, then you're the one to finish my books, Nikki. So no pressure there. I might fake my own death next year, so I warn you now. But no, I'm the same. And funnily enough, I was at Bay Tales in February, and someone in the audience asked all the panel I was on, who would we collaborate with? And I think I really scared Anne Cleves, who was on the front row, because I said I wouldn't share with anyone because I'm a massive control freak. And I think she was a bit horrified that I wasn't a sharer. So sorry, Anne, about that. I was memorable at least.
Yes.
But yes, too much. But yeah, I'm like you. I think that I'd be interested to know how it works. And I guess it's just one of those things that you must learn how to do. But I would like to ask them, and this actually isn't a question we've asked them yet, is how they got into doing it together. We didn't put that on. We must put that on the questions. How do you get into something like that, and how do you decide that you're a writer on your own, but actually you're better as a team? So that's an interesting one, I think.
Yes, maybe if you have kind of strengths in different areas, one of you's good at the kind of, one side of things, and one of you's particularly good at editing and bringing things together. I don't know, but yeah, we'll definitely ask them that, because I just can't imagine working with anybody else. But I guess that's because I'm used to kind of sitting away in my little writing cave and getting it on with them, on my own kind of thing. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating, I think.
It is indeed going to be fascinating.
So shall we get our guests on now and see what they have to say? Yes. Welcome Collette Lyons and Paul Vlitos to In Suspense. Yay. Welcome Collette and Paul, aka Ellery Lloyd, to In Suspense. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we dive in with our many questions, I'm going to read you a bit about your bio. So Ellery Lloyd is the pseudonym for London-based husband and wife writing team Collette Lyons and Paul Vlitos. Collette is a journalist and editor. She's the former content director of Elle and editorial director at Soho House. She's written for The Guardian, The Telegraph and The Sunday Times. And Paul is the author of 2 previous novels, Welcome to the Working Week and Every Day is Like Sunday. And he's the programme director for English Literature with Creative Writing at the University of Surrey, which is just up the road from me, actually. So, yes, welcome. So your latest book, The Club, which I have a copy of Yeah.
Oh, you've got one here. I haven't got one because I lent it to Nikki.
That's because you haven't sent it to me, because
Yeah.
I only got the Kindle version. So that was published in March, and it was a Reece Witherspoon pick. Congratulations for that. Wonderful. And I absolutely raced through it to get to the end of the story. You do cliffhangers so well. And I wondered if perhaps, first of all, you could just tell us a little bit about the club.
So it is a murder mystery set at the launch of a private members club on a private island off the coast of Essex. And it's told through the eyes of the long-suffering staff of this celebrity members club, and things start to go wrong pretty quickly, and the bodies start piling up.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's such a great description. I also found it to be an absolutely fascinating story. I found it to be the perfect gem of toxic characters, wealth and secrets, all wrapped up in the most amazing setting. For me, I'm a massive sucker for celebrities in novels and love an epistolary as well. So I'd love to know if it was fun to write all those naughty celebrities, and how you came up with the idea of having an article that teased the reader with what was to come as well. That was so enticing.
So one of the first things that our a good friend of ours who kind of reads our early drafts said that she suggested setting out the stall quite early that this was a murder mystery. And we toyed with the idea of a sort of omnipresent narrator actually in the first draft. Do you remember?
We'd always wanted someone to explain this world from the outside, and sort of explain lots of information about the kind of the group that owned the island and their kind of history. But then also we needed that voice to let you know there's going to be a murder. We didn't want the murders to start right. We wanted a bit of a slow burn, so you're getting to know the characters and you're enjoying this gossip and the kind of glamorous world, but knowing that something's in the pipeline. So that was how it.
Yeah, and my background is magazines as well. So yeah, that was really fun to write. And there's sort of a quite a fun vernacular, I guess, of celebrity. And my background is kind of fashion and style magazines, but the celebrities always just tucked their feet up under them on the sofa, and they've always ordered a bowl of chips, which they never have. And they're kind of there's just it was quite fun to pastiche it, basically.
Yeah, that was a fun bit to write.
Yeah, it was really, really good, really good. And I know you worked at Soho House as well, Collette. So I read an article that you wrote in, I think it was in Essex Life, about an actual celebrity island that exists called, is it OC Island?
OC, yeah.
And I just wondered how much of the club had kind of come from that island. Is that where you got the idea from?
Well, we actually set the first draft of the club, which at that point was called Members. But we set it in the Hamptons, where neither of us have ever been.
It was full of rich Americans that we'd known.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah.
The flora and fauna, so that didn't work particularly
we had to do that for Essex as well.
Yeah, we did the other. But we wrote the whole thing during, I think we started it pretty much the beginning of the pandemic, right? So we were kind of writing it in successive lockdowns. So I knew that OC existed, and we did actually get to visit, because you can pay to stay there. There's sort of, I was going to say cabins, but they're not. It's kind of like a funny little Victorian village, isn't it? So it was a temperance community. It was owned by Frederick Charrington, I think, who's it was an East London brewing family, and he either fell out with the family or was a sort of born again teetotaler, and he bought the island, which is linked by this quite treacherous causeway, which is plot point.
It's not very treacherous. We made it more treacherous.
Yeah.
Very treacherous.
Treacherous.
Yeah.
when I
Don't
drove-
spoil the dilemma, Paul. Yes.
Well, I actually live near Mersey, which is Mersey Island, and I've only been once, and I went the other day, and I sort of expected quite a treacherous causeway, and it's literally a tiny little bridge that's like about 3 meters long. So I was like, yeah, you're hamming up the treacherousness. I love it.
Well,
no,
driving
no,
with me,
no,
that's
yeah,
what it
driving-
felt like.
So,
Collette
yeah,
was
it's just
terrible.
driving. No, so there was a TV show called The Third Day. I don't know if you saw it, but it was that happened that was screened. It was an HBO thing during lockdown, and Jude Law was in it. And I read an interview, and that actually is kind of where the idea for the causeway came from. I'm not sure Paul knows this,
You just ripped it off.
the interview with him, because they were filming on OC. He said that actually, if you do mistime it, which they did, kind of getting equipment back and forth onto the island a couple of times, it can be really quite scary because the tide does come in very, very quickly when it starts to come in. So yeah, we probably did ham it up a little bit, but Jude Law says it's scary, so it probably,
Jude says it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
And it's been a rehab centre, and now it's a
Yeah, so it was but founded in sort of 1900 or something. It was a temperance community, and then it was a rehab place, and I think Amy Winehouse was there, and it was quite famous. And then it was bought by a record producer. So it's sort of private when they want it to be private, and you can rent out cabins when when there aren't kind of mega stars on the island. Although when we went, which was just at the end of the sort of second massive lockdown, Stormzy was in the coffee queue behind us, but I didn't notice.
What, you walked straight past him? There's like 4 people in the queue too. He wasn't in the coffee queue, he was like walking past.
Anyway, I missed him.
I think he might
He
be.
was obviously there to
Stormzy missed seeing the Ellery Lloyd. Actually, I think you're right.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, there was a helicopter going back and forth, wasn't there? Yeah.
Oh yes, I did like the helicopters.
I like the helicopters.
Cloud,
I think
yeah,
Rihanna's
very
recorded
snazzy.
there as well, actually.
So
yeah.
our topic today is, as you know, writing duos. And I am sorry, because I feel like you probably talk about this all the time. You must be sick to death of talking about the process of writing, but I honestly can't tell you how the rest of us find this so fascinating. And just to add to the dynamic that not only do you write together, but you're a couple, which again, so many questions. But I just want to kick off by asking if you could explain the process of how you write together, please. Are you planners? Do you split the book into chapters and decide who writes what? How does it work?
You can't really pants a novel if there's 2 of you. So
I can imagine not.
We tried it.
It doesn't work. So our first novel, People Like Her.
Yeah.
We had a vague outline, didn't we? So actually, we sort of got 3/4 of the way through, and then got a bit stuck because we had this broad outline. And then we came up with I was on a work trip to Shanghai, and on the way back, I sort of couldn't sleep, and the rest of the plot came to me, so I sort of jotted it all down in one very long note,
which was a
sent
big
it to Paul.
problem for the second book, because we didn't know if we could plot a book without you being on a long haul.
That's an expensive way to plot.
Exactly. But so actually what we then did, this is what we've done since, is had a very locked down chapter plan. So we know our chapters are fairly short, and they're our novels are in multiple voices. So we know where each chapter begins and ends. We know what the cliffhanger is, and we know so that's sort of how we do that. But it has to be quite a tight chapter planner. It's just like a game of consequences, and it ends up being completely all over the place.
And do you each choose how you're going to write? Who do you know in advance who's writing each chapter, or do you just like, oh, which one am I doing today?
We usually do a voice each, don't we? Yeah, divide up the voices.
We do divide up the voices, yeah. I mean, but we both edit, but each other's, so we don't just read the bits that, well, sometimes we don't just read the bits that we've written. Can you just get on with the one you've but then we both edit all of it, so it's kind of reads seamlessly. But yeah, we do take individual voices.
How did you start? How did you start doing this together?
Well, we'd always I'd always been doing kind of books on my own that didn't have plots, and you'd always be coming up with really good plots.
But not being bothered.
And then we suddenly, when you came up with the idea for people like her, and you said, oh, like a mum influencing her husband, then it suddenly realised, oh, hold on, even if we had very different voices, that could be natural to the book, and that could be a real benefit to the book. So that was when it finally clicked.
And actually, so we
I mean, I was writing another book secretly as well, just in case that one didn't work.
Were you?
Yeah.
Now you tell her, Paul. Now you tell her.
I had a little side project, but it didn't have a plot.
Paul never, the plot thing was never. Paul's very funny writer, and wrote, his sort of first two books, I would say, were sort of,
they're kind of they're kind of comedy driven, and just kind of general
voice driven,
ambling along.
and I like to put the murders in, so when we started writing together, that was that felt like the kind of right genre for us. But actually we had our daughter, so she's 5 now, and we just didn't have a social life anymore. That genuinely is what happened. So she was a terrible sleeper. We didn't really go out because we didn't have a babysitter, and we'd finished all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. We didn't have anything else to talk about, so we kind of and we both, our backgrounds are both, mine's kind of journalism, Paul's written novels before, so we just thought we might as well give it a go, and it worked out quite well.
Very well.
And how did you come up with your name? How did you come up with the Ellery Lloyd name?
We had been told that, like, for crime fiction, having a 3-syllable first name and then 1-syllable surname is like the recipe for success. But we can only have
new information.
I know. I mean,
it's only Gillian Flynn, and I can't think of anyone else.
I know. I was trying to think of somebody actually. Yeah.
Right. I need a new name.
I mean, Gillian Flynn's pretty good, actually. That's
So and then we didn't, for some reason, we didn't want initials. Don't know why.
We wanted something that was like gender neutral.
Yeah.
We tried combining maiden names, but all the names on your side of the family are quite Scottish.
Yeah.
And mine are quite Greek.
So it sounded a bit weird.
It seemed like we were sort of falsifying our identity.
Yeah.
Like,
so
we
I just googled 3.
Wow.
So we just googled.
That's amazing. That's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I'm going to remember that. 3 syllables. And yes.
But you're not. Did you already say this? If you have 2 names on a cover,
they think
it's well. I actually think this is less the case now, because there's Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, but to have sort of received wisdom is 2 names on a cover, unless it's James Patterson and Dolly Parton. It makes it look like non-fiction.
I can see that.
I can see that as well. Yeah.
That was
Wow. And editing, do you always agree with each other? How does that go, and how do you not kill each other? If I was asked to edit with my husband, I would kill him, quite frankly. So how do you manage it?
We tell them that's just what the conversation has just been. I was like, oh, I've just done this, and Paul was like, okay, you crack on. He's like, oh, don't worry, I've saved it elsewhere, the bit as I wanted it to be. So sometimes I find things creeping back in I've removed, and vice versa. We work in Google Docs, so we see each other live editing, which is we also don't work in the same room, because that would be awful. So we can hear the other one is quite often sort of shouting up or down the stairs, leave that bit in, I can get out of there. we're sort of slaughtering each other's darlings, you know, from kind of different parts of the house.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so stressful. And when do you guys write? Do you generally write at the same time, or do you like, how does that work?
I mean,
it depends on the book. Like,
yeah,
but I mean, we can both, because we've got our separate bits to go through, we can both, you know, we can both do it separately.
Yeah, I mean,
because we've got the plan, it doesn't matter if someone's a little bit ahead. It gets a bit unsettling if someone's too far ahead.
Yeah.
I'll give them more washing to do if they're too far ahead.
Run our road. Yeah, I mean, we both got other jobs, so it kind of fits, you know, we kind of eke out the time when
it fits in. Yeah. What occurred to me when I was thinking about writing duos is how, as a writer, I don't switch off very much. I think just switching off isn't something that we're very good at. And it occurred to me that my husband doesn't pay much attention to my writing, but when we have a little chit chat sometimes at night, that's when he'll decide to question me about my career plans and what book I'm writing and the plot, and start like really pulling it apart. And I'm just like, no, it's bedtime for me. I've worked all day and I've had enough. So I was wondering, do you find it a challenge to switch off when you're both sort of in the same zone? And do you have a certain headspace to chat about the book, or do you have like a safe word where you're like, now's not the time, and like things like that?
I think it's just swearing, isn't it?
Yeah. I think more than that, you will quite often get really good ideas at night at bedtime. Like, I've got a brilliant idea, but it'll involve 2 more chapters. We've got to rewrite. You know that bit that you've just done that you're really proud of? I've got a brilliant idea. We're all going to need to rewrite, you know, the last bit.
I think it honestly depends on what part of the process we're in. So we're quite a way into book 3 now, and yeah, we're not really talking about much else.
No.
But that, I don't like that. That's the sort of intense bit, and actually that tends to be when we know exactly where the plot's going, and it's sort of ratcheting, it's tightening it, going, actually, do you think that should happen there? Or hang on, if maybe he did this, then this would have a knock on in chapter 17 that would actually be quite helpful. Like it's and that's the stuff I really enjoy. It's like the kind of
or when I have to point out that you start, you know, there's a big kind of EastEnders dum bit that's meant to be the end. And you've stolen it. It's a chapter early. It's like, this is really good. Like, oh, great. You jumped the gun.
But I mean, actually, the other thing, like what we tend to do is we'll spend a lot of time talking about the plot and the world and the characters and everything before we even start a chapter plan. And quite often that's like in the car when our daughter's asleep. Like it's kind of,
that's really nice.
Yeah,
that's the really nice bit of writing together, is having someone to bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah. So that, yeah, I would say we don't have much downtime, but I actually don't think that in terms of like the chatting about it and the ideas stuff, that's quite nice.
You don't mind? No, neither of you ever say, shut up, I want to go to sleep.
Yeah, but I mean, you know.
And you both come from, I guess, kind of similar and also kind of different backgrounds in terms of careers. I mean, they both involve writing, but kind of different kinds of writing, I guess. So what do you think, how has that kind of affected your writing? What do you feel that's brought to your books, the different styles that you both kind of work in?
We're both quite used to like giving feedback and receiving it, aren't we?
Yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest benefit. Like I was a journalist, but actually tended to, I've been an editor rather than a kind of sort of freelance working journalist. So, you know, I was commissioning and editing other journalists, and so that's heavily feedback based, you know, kind of going back to writers for commissioning them and then go back to them for edits. Yeah. It would be incredibly churlish, therefore, to not like being edited. So I'm fairly used to that when I was commissioned to write. and you're used to kind of a
Yeah,
similar.
I'm used to giving people feedback and trying to, okay, what, how can we make this better? How can we tweak it?
So it's helpful to know that sort of feedback is always, it's not because the work is bad, it's because it could be better, and like that. And so I think that's what we, we don't mind being edited.
Yes.
And I think if we did, this might be
I mean, also, I think because we are married and we know each other quite well, we can be a bit ruder than you would be to a colleague.
I just love that.
Yes, rather than maybe maybe this isn't so good. I think the words might be slightly harsher. Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Red pen, deleting. Yeah.
Yes. Nikki's got a question about celebrities, but I just want to jump in and ask, you talk about how you often take a different voice. When you get your structural edits back, how does that work? Is it very similar that you break it down? You're like, well, okay, so that section needs to change in that voice, so I'll do it. Or is it slightly different?
Yeah, usually it is, isn't it? I think. And I always get more edits.
We've never done we've been quite lucky in that we have, because there's two of us. I mean, I'm saying this touching lots of wood.
Do not tell me, Collette,
you're going to
don't get structural edits.
What a structural edit.
Don't say that, Paul. Right, I'm sorry, you're not allowed on the podcast anymore.
Right, you wait for book 3. You wait.
No, actually, I'm really impressed. That's amazing.
Totally cursed ourselves. But because there's two of us, I think, and because we will have been through multiple drafts.
It does sound like you do a lot of drafts. So what draft are you on now with book 3?
5, isn't it?
5.
Wow,
Okay.
that's amazing. So I probably I in fact only do 2 drafts before it goes off to other people. So I guess, like you say, because the two of you are so good at giving feedback, you're obviously doing your structural edits yourself. That's so impressive.
We've got in-house editors.
Yeah. Okay, that makes me feel slightly better. I had visions of the first draft disappearing off and just being perfect. Yeah.
I would also say that one of the downsides of writing as 2 people is you can go off in different directions. So there is an editing stage, well, we've given him 2 dads and he's got 2 origin stories.
Exactly.
He's got, people change names. There's a whole
and he's from Scotland and he's Welsh, and
there are all these weird glitches that you do then need to go through and fix.
And with a fine-tooth comb. So and I think because it's multiple voices, and especially with the club, I think massive structural edits would have been like removing a Jenga block, because so
there were whole
that is structural edits.
The course of that book, though, it went from Ned, the kind of founder, he got murdered with a sword at the start in one of them.
Yes. He was like Henry VIII at a banqueting table.
Oh my goodness.
So it was right at the start, and then we sort of thought, well, that's quite annoying, so you have to bring the police on. So then there's a whole convolution.
Oh, we'll do anything to avoid the police.
Yeah, no, don't blame you.
To avoid it becoming a police procedural, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard, but I always find the more books I write, the harder I'm finding to avoid the police for the different storylines I'm coming up with. I'm like, oh, there's a detective, damn you.
It doesn't turn up occasionally, but we do try and make sure that it sort of pops out again.
Pop in, pop out.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was fascinated by all the celebrities in the club that you actually kind of name a lot of people, and I didn't know that you could do that in books, and so I wondered, kind of, did you ask anyone for permission? But also you had a really clever way, I think, of introducing celebrities. So you'd mention people's names together in a sentence, and I think you did it with Jennifer and Monica, and immediately it makes the reader go friends, when you haven't actually referred to any of the actresses or the characters. So I thought that was super clever and very well done. And how did you think about doing that?
So we used only first names the majority of the time, and where we used full names, it was very throwaway in passing in
a way away from any murders or
yeah.
Yes.
You know, I don't think we did this, but you know, it's like, oh, and Damon Albarn in Soho, like you certainly want massive distance between anyone's actual name and any skullduggery.
And then particularly the lawyers in the States, we had to do some changes to one of the characters, didn't we?
Yeah, but I mean, you have to make, and you know, none of the characters were based on anybody.
They were
but
sort of
obviously,
they were traits and composite.
Yeah.
But you definitely had to make sure that
it was any one specific person.
Which it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I'm all for a fictional celebrity in my line of work, so don't worry.
Yeah.
I've got to say that you are really selling the collaborative approach. I know that Nikki and I and a couple of our friends often do like a brainstorming session sometimes when one of us is sort of at the start of our books, and we do find it really useful, but sort of then we're very much on our own, and the fact that you're always having this approach sounds so fascinating. But I was just wondering, what are there any downsides? Is there anything that's really tough, do you think? Are there anything that's harder, do you think, as a duo than being on your own?
I mean, continuity, like that's, you know, like Paul was saying, you know,
babysitting for events. Like we can't
babysitting.
Which Ellery Lloyd?
Yeah, I suppose because you've both got to be at the events, haven't you?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So yeah, we both went to bloody Scotland, and we did a lovely festival. Yeah. No. And you know, that takes some kind of manoeuvring.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, I mean, won't speak for all as well, but it's definitely the sort of plus points outweigh the downsides.
I think it works really well also if you're doing like a crime thing or a murder mystery, and you know, right, we know there's got to be a murder, someone's got to solve it, you know, you've got a bit of structure in there. If we didn't have those constraints on us, I think it'd be a lot harder.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that is quite funny is you definitely become aware of each other's tics.
Yes.
So I can't even think. I mean, this isn't a writerly tic, but Paul put about 20 buffets in the blog.
You like a buffet, Paul?
That was like, he's like, this is a luxury hotel. What does luxury mean to
me? She's worked in
the
glamorous world and knows it. I'm just trying to imagine the most glamorous thing in an academic's life. It's like
it's having a chocolate fountain and a waffle on the same
got
plate
murdered at a buffet.
Yeah, so yeah, that was Paul's excitement about buffets. I had to tone down. I don't think there's a single buffet now. So
it was lockdown, wasn't it? It's obviously missing the buffet.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, I love a buffet as well, actually. Can't go wrong, can you?
So, yeah, there's definitely sort of writerly tics that we both pick up on and remove.
You must have thousands of hands.
And Paul loves an ant.
Down. It's like all these. For some reason, I got really into it. The club.
There were times when search and
in his head.
Yeah, in his
head.
Yes.
I mean, we all have them, don't we? But I think you must see them a lot more. Like often, someone will point them out. But obviously, like you say, you guys point them out for each other, so that you must be just like an editor's dream. I just can't imagine how happy your editors must be when you get something. So, as we like to ask all our guests, what they're currently reading at the moment. So, have you got anything that you're currently reading or anything you'd like to recommend to us on the show, please?
I've just started Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent.
Oh, yes. I love that cover.
I love the cover.
I'm only about 20 pages in. So, but yes, I'm sort of treating myself with 5 pages a night after
Is that before you fall asleep because you're shattered? Yes.
Yeah.
And then just before our daughter comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and I've got The It Girl by Ruth Ware on bedside table as well, which
nice. Yeah, good fun.
I've got Proof of the Marriage Act.
Yeah. John Mars,
which is really
good. Yeah.
Oh, I love John Mars so much. We must get him on the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
So lovely.
And yeah, you've got a book on hieroglyphics, which
Well, I was going to say, the John Miles is the treat, and then there's also some Egyptian stuff. And unluckily, I've got the stands that involved reading a load of Freud and the Book of the Dead.
And the Book of the Dead,
All the bits and pages.
Yeah,
Great.
Fascinating.
So there's a little strand of Egyptology.
Oh, how interesting! I can't wait for your next one.
When's it out? When's your next one coming out?
It's due with the publishers in about 6 weeks. 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah, but it's not. We can't say anything about it.
No. Is it 24?
Maybe out 24.
24.
Yeah. So you got a bit of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nikki, what are you reading at the moment, or what have you got to recommend?
Well, I am reading. Well, I've just finished Louise Cambish's The Only Suspect.
I'm very jealous.
It was brilliant. Yes, I absolutely loved it. Kind of 1990s London. So at the same time as I'd just kind of started living in London, really. So it took me straight back down memory lane, and very, very clever, brilliantly done. So I would definitely recommend that. And then I've also read, which I don't actually have a copy of because I couldn't find it on my bookshelves, but I think I have a picture of it. There we go. It's called A Flaw in the Design by, I don't know if you can see it. There we go. A Flaw in the Design by Nathan Oates. And I think it's out in March 23, and it's a literary thriller set in America, about a guy who is now living in Vermont. He's estranged from his sister because about 6 years before, his sister's son had tried to drown this guy's daughter when he was only 11, and his sister has just died, and his boy, the nephew, comes to live with him and his family, and it is talk about ramping up tension all the way through. It was fabulous. I couldn't put it down, so I would completely recommend that one as well.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's very, very clever. Yes. How about you, Lauren? What have you
well, I've got to say, actually, I've not been doing much reading because I'm editing my book and I'm reading a lot of it. I'm not getting much time to read, and also I like to read in the evenings. I normally go up to bed about 8 and we'll read for an hour before bedtime because I'm an early nighter. But we're watching I'm a Celebrity at the moment with the kids, and it's literally getting in the way of my life. I'm sick to death of it, in fact, but it's sort of a family time, so I'm a bit involved in it. So I finished Her by Mira Shah. It's really lovely. Fantastic thriller, so definitely one to look out for next year. I got sent The Dive, which has been quite all over.
Oh yes, I've seen that. Yeah,
I want to say Sarah Ox, so I haven't looked at that yet. So I didn't. It's beautiful. I'm really excited to read it. A real exotic thriller. I've been listening to People Like Us by Louise.
Yes,
right, Nikki. Yeah, sorry, my pronunciation of names tonight is out the window. It's gone 9, guys. I should be in bed. And that was a fantastic historical book. I really, really enjoy listening to her books. And I'm listening to a book that Laura Van Rensburg recommended at the Manchester Capital Crime Central. Manchester Crime Central event that I went to last week, called The Collector by John Fowles, and it's not a recent book at all, but it's it's really good. I don't know why I so apologise then. It's okay to swear after 9, surely.
For some reason I read the blurb about that the other day. What's it about?
It's fabulous.
Yeah, so it's basically set, I think, in like the 50s, and it's about this guy who wins some money, and he decides what he's going to do with that money is basically kidnap this woman and keep her and hope that she'll fall in love with him, and he's just completely insane, but he's so interesting to listen to. Just completely insane, but I love it. Yes, that's really fascinating. I'm really enjoying that.
Well, I think that sadly, I think that's probably all we've got time for. So thank you very much for joining us, Collette and Paul.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been so fascinating. I'm sure we're going to come off this call and I'm going to wish I'd asked you about 10 more questions. But don't forget, the club is out now and it's a brilliantly fresh and fun thriller. So do check it out. Next week, we've got our 5th minisode, which is all about creating great police characters in our novels, even if they are only dipping in and out. Do tune in, guys. And then in our next interview, Leslie and I will be chatting career longevity and adapting to the market with the amazing Adele Parks, which I'm so looking forward to, who's really, her whole career is completely developed and changed from more of like romance and women's fiction all the way to thrillers. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her.
Yes, that's all that is. That's going to be amazing. She's going to be really interesting to chat to, isn't she? And I think that leaves me with the final task of saying goodbye from Collette and Paul.
Bye.
Bye from Lauren.
Bye.
And goodbye from me. Goodbye.